Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, Diana and the Book Hunt. Today I'm doing a bit of a surprise vlog, at least it's a surprise for myself because I really didn't think about doing this vlog at all before I just sat down to do it, to be honest. But I really wanted to put in my 2 cents about a specific book that just recently came out where there's a bit of drama and controversy surrounding it. And I don't typically tend to go into such situations. I don't really follow whenever there is a controversy around an author or a book. But in this specific situation, it's regarding a book that I absolutely love, and I don't really agree with the drama and the situation that was created surrounding the whole the release of the book and the plot and whatever the problems were that people had with the book. So I just wanted to kind of make a vlog about my opinion about that book, but also about another book which is tied to it. Let me just explain which books those are so it becomes evident what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about the 4th book off of the Blood and Ash series by Jennifer L. Armentrout, as well as A Shadow in the Ember, which is the prequel to that series. Maybe I should start off by giving you a background of how I started reading that series. Before picking it up, I had never ever read a fantasy romance book in my life. I had always been very intimidated by fantasy books in general, but also fantasy romance because they tend to be chunky books and chunky series, and it asks for a lot of commitment to get into those books and really finish them. And I hate not finishing series, so I'm very hesitant about picking up series in general. So I just never had the motivation or maybe the courage to pick up fantasy romance books. But I saw on Booktube that the Blood and Ash series was having quite a bit of a moment because I believe that at the time that I was checking it out, the 2nd book had just came out, and everyone was talking about it, and the way that it was described, it really sounded very, very intriguing to me. So I was like, I need to start reading that genre anyway to see whether it's going to be for me. So I'm just going to pick this book up. So I started with The Blood and Ash, the 1st book, and I absolutely loved it. I loved the 2nd book, and I was very lucky that when I finished the 2nd book, I think I had to wait only a month or so before the 3rd book came out. So I was immediately able to pick up where I left off and finish the 3rd book. And that's where I understood that there's going to be a 4th book, and I couldn't wait to pick it up. So at some point I found out that there's going to be a prequel which will come out before The War of Two Queens, which is the 4th book. But I didn't really think about picking it up. I was like, I don't want to immerse myself into kind of a side story. I really want to just pick up where I left off so I don't get too confused. So I just decided not to read that. But then I had my pre-order ready. I was going to start on the 15th of March when the release day was with The War of Two Queens. But I don't know, maybe because I'm not experienced with reading fantasy series in general, I really thought that I remembered quite a bit off of the 3rd book, but I was hesitant whether I was going to be able to immerse myself as fluently as I had before. So I decided to look up on Booktube whether I'm going to find a good recap of the 3 books before I immerse myself in the 4th book. And I found a perfect video by, I believe her name is Jess from Honest Fiction, I think her channel is called. I'll link it down below. She has a marvelous spoiler-filled, obviously, recap, so you can kind of prepare yourself to dive into the 4th book. And she was very adamant about the need to pick up A Shadow in the Ember before starting on the fourth book, because A Shadow in the Ember provides such a valuable and a necessary view on what you need to know when you go into the fourth book. So a lot of the conflicts and characters and developments make sense, that I was like, okay, even though I hate waiting, I really wanted to pick up the War of Two Queens. I decided to get A Shadow in the Ember and then read that one first. Now, let me just say first, those two books are both 650 pages or so. So it took me quite a while to finish them. Usually when I read audiobooks, obviously I read them very fast because I can speed up the narration. But with physical books, it just takes a bit longer, especially with fantasy books, because there's a lot of world building, a lot of descriptions. So it just takes a little while longer to get into them. So it really took me 10 days to finish those two books. And I think that that's why I also haven't posted any videos, because I was so immersed into the two books that I just kind of locked myself out of the world, basically. I was just working and reading the whole time. So yeah, when I finished the two books, that is when I found out that there is this big controversy going around what happened in the War of Two Queens. If you're not familiar, or maybe let me go back and say, obviously this video I'm going to be discussing very specific situations within both books, which will have spoilers included. So if you haven't read the books, please read them first and then watch this video. Or if you're not interested in picking them up, but you really want to know what my opinion is on the controversy regardless, stick around and watch. What I found out is that many people were very upset with Jennifer L. Armentrout because of the plot development within the book, within the fourth book. They felt like the main character, Poppy, was cheating on her husband emotionally with his best friend. To maybe give you an overview, maybe we should start off with where the third book left off and how the fourth book continued. The third book, the ending of the third book, we found out that Isbeth, the Blood Queen, the enemy, basically is our main character, Poppy's mother. We also find out that she has some nefarious plans with Poppy, and Castile, who is Poppy's husband, decides to kind of offer himself up so that Isbeth cannot continue with her plan with Poppy, or can at least try to delay her plans. So he offers himself as a prisoner, and he has been a prisoner of Isbeth's before, so that is quite a bit of a sacrifice that he's making for Poppy. So he gets imprisoned, and in the meantime we also find out that who Poppy's father is. We also find out that Poppy decides to retaliate against the Blood Queen by decapitating the king, King Jalara, I think he's called. So that is where the third book ended, and in the fourth book is where basically the war between the two queens is starting off, the plotting and kind of the political games between the two, and really the action needs to start coming into fruition. And because Poppy and Castile are apart, he's a prisoner and she is running off, having to plan this war against her mother. She has his best friend Kieran, who is her trusted advisor and basically her best accomplice. And they grow close. They really form a very strong friendship with each other. He is very protective of Poppy, and he is very supportive of everything that she does. And This is why people believe that there is an emotional cheating aspect within the book. But I have to put in my 2 cents here and say that I find this to be very unbelievable because from book 1 on, we kind of get hints here and there of what the progression of the relationship will be between Poppy, Castile, and Kieran. We get this ritual, which is called the joining, hinted at multiple points within the last 3 books, where we know that this joining is going to be some kind of a binding ritual of their fates, their 3 fates. So we know that Kieran is always going to be a kind of a very important character and a very important part within Poppy's life. And in the previous 3 books, we kind of have this relationship between Kieran and Poppy as being not very close to each other, and Kieran kind of being annoyed by Poppy because she asks so many questions and she's very impulsive, and he's not really he's not her friend, but he's also not her enemy, so he's kind of a bit, in my opinion, not very, he's a bit of indifferent toward her. So for me, it wouldn't make sense to have a ritual as the joining, which we know is going to happen, if they're not close to each other, if they don't have the type of relationship which will require them to be close to each other. So I think that the author did an amazing job of creating that special bond between the 2 of them, and it made sense to me that this happened in this way. And also I gained a lot of respect towards Kieran because of the way that he was handling the situation. It turned out within the book that because Poppy is actually a god, that she will also need to feed, otherwise she will weaken. And Kieran offers himself up as kind of the person that she can feed off of, so that she doesn't need to turn to someone else, because in the past she had experienced that feedings can turn sexual because she has only fed off of Castile. But there is nothing sexual between the feeding moment when Poppy needs to feed off of Kieran, so I don't really get why people thought that it's kind of a cheating situation. And last but not least, about this specific plotline, I found that Castile was very supportive of the relationship between Poppy and Kieran, especially during the joining, which actually happens within the 4th book. He's actually encouraging them to act upon their feelings, although they're not specifically sexual, or they don't experience the love. And they are actually, now that I think about it, they're really trying to define the type of love that they have for each other throughout the book. They actually talk about that, Poppy and Kieran. And Castile is so supportive throughout the joining and after the joining as well. So I really don't get why people are thinking that this is kind of a cheating situation. I just don't get it. So I really don't agree with that part of the controversy. And what upsets me the most is that people are attacking the author about decisions that she has made about characters in a world that she has built from scratch. I mean, just talking about characters in the cliche term of them being her babies. I mean, she's the responsible person for bringing them up. We're not entitled or allowed to kind of bring up her kids for her, right? To give her advice on how she should parent her children, just to give an example. So if she wants to do this with her characters, that's absolutely her prerogative. If you don't like the books, just don't read them. If you're upset about how something turns out, voice it, but don't attack the author and don't make it such a big deal and such a drama. because we have too much drama going on anyway, so it's just silly to focus on something in such a harassing way. So I really don't agree with people attacking authors about decisions that they make about fictional characters. It just doesn't make sense to me. And the last thing that I really wanted to stress here is that A Shadow in the Ember is a necessity to the understanding and the appreciation towards the fourth book within the Blood and Ash series. So I really highly encourage everyone to pick it up before the fourth book. It will give you such an insight on who Poppy will become and why there are certain conflicts between Isbeth and Eluana and Valen, and also we get the plot line of Castillo's brother Malik, I think you pronounce his name, and his love interest within the book, which is also a very interesting twist within the book. So everything is kind of tied together, and I do understand, I think Jess from Peace Love Books and someone else, I don't remember who, they didn't read the prequel. So they found that because they didn't read it, there were a lot of info dump moments where there's just so much information coming from a character that is kind of a side character in some situations. It was Reaver, who is this Draken who accompanies Poppy, and then in some situations at the end it's Nectus, who is also a Draken. He's like the biggest Draken that there is, and the oldest one, so he knows quite a lot about the history of the gods and the primals. So there's a lot of info dump moments which can get annoying for someone who hasn't had the background information and kind of thinks like, oh, this is just too much information, I don't follow it, and it's kind of getting confusing. So I totally understand that, and that is why it's really necessary to read A Shadow in the Ember first. And I definitely think it's worth it. I mean, I know a lot of people said it's like Poppy Story 2.0 upgraded or something like that, but I really didn't think that that was the case. I found that Nyktos was his very own person in terms of a character, and Serafina, while her plot development was quite similar to Poppy's, her character is has a very different strength than Poppy, and the way that their romantic relationship progresses is also a bit different. And I think that because the secretive agenda behind Serafina's plotline is kind of developed in a quicker pace than Poppy's, you just get sucked in very quickly into that story. So I didn't really think that it was a hardship to read that book, even though it's a 600 plus pages book. So yeah, I definitely encourage to pick up the first 3 books of the Blood and Ash series, read the prequel, and then pick up the 4th book. And now the long wait commences. I believe in October we'll get the 2nd book off of the Shadow in the Ember world. I don't know what the series is called, Fire and Flesh something, I don't know. So we'll get the 2nd book of Serafina's and Nyktos, and we'll see how their story will progress and how the relationship between Nyktos and another primal god, I don't want to mention his name so I don't ruin anything more than I already did in the video. And after that, sometime next year, we'll probably get the 5th book within the Blood and Ash series, and I'm definitely going to be rereading this time because it's just a lot of information, and I really think that it's necessary to be up to date with all the details so you can immerse yourself in the correct way into the continuation of the story. So I'll definitely do a reread. So to recap my whole idea behind this video, I love both of the books. I recommend both of the books to be read in order. And oh, sorry, I'm getting water off my nose. Anyway, and I just don't get the drama surrounding the controversy surrounding the War of Two Queens. And please don't attack any authors because of decisions they make. I mean, it's absolutely their prerogative to develop the characters and plot lines however they like, and we can only kind of encourage them and explain what our position is so that they can take notes off of what we like and don't like for future reference. I don't think that it's okay to attack them about it. So yeah, I don't agree with the controversy. I loved Poppy and Kieran's plotline. I love the development. I love the joining. Although I do have to say that after all the mystery that we had surrounding the joining, I was just a tiny bit underwhelmed with the ritual itself. I wanted a little bit more off of it, but it was beautifully done, so I'm not going to complain about it. And yeah, I am happy that I finished those two books, but I'm definitely not going to be picking up any fantasy reads in the next couple of weeks. I just really need to clear my head off of this world because it's been a trip, like 10 days of reading those long books has been enough for me. I'm going to be picking up a couple of fast reads now, and very soon I'm going to be posting my March wrap up. I'm going to be posting a book haul for you, so please stick around. I will be back very soon. I enjoyed chatting to you today on this very late evening, and I wish you a very marvelous, wonderful day, evening, morning, wherever you are, and happy reading. Take care.